Your energy is changing right now, and by the time this video ends, you will not only understand what that change is and where it is coming from, but you will also recognize the 11 specific things you are already beginning to feel as your whole inner world quietly reorganizes itself from the inside out. This is not a small shift. This is not a passing mood or a difficult week. What is happening in and around you right now is something much more significant, something that touches the deepest layers of who you are as a Cancer, how you feel, how you connect, how you see yourself, how you experience your own days. And the most important thing you can know is that what you are feeling is not confusion. It is not weakness. It is the unmistakable sensation of real change moving through a real person who is genuinely ready for a new chapter. You may not feel ready. You may feel like you are barely holding on, like things are shifting under your feet before you have had a chance to get steady. But readiness does not always feel the way we expect it to. Sometimes it feels like disorientation. Sometimes it feels like restlessness. Sometimes it feels like waking up in a room that looks familiar, but somehow does not feel like yours anymore. That is what this is. And this video is going to walk you through every layer of it, one at a time, so that by the end, you feel something very close to peace about all of it. Thing 1. You are waking up differently than you used to, not necessarily earlier or later, but with a different quality of awareness, a different feeling in the first few moments of the day, as though your sleeping self has been doing important work that your waking self is only beginning to catch up with. This is the first thing you will feel, and for Cancer, it is particularly notable because Cancer lives so fully in the emotional body, so deeply in the feeling life, that a change in the quality of waking is almost always a signal of something significant happening at a very deep level. The morning for most people is a kind of neutral reset. You wake up, the day begins, the routine kicks in. But for you right now, the mornings feel charged. They feel different. There is sometimes a sense of something just out of reach, a feeling, an insight, a knowing that was very clear a moment ago and has already begun to fade, like a dream that slips away faster the harder you try to hold it. Other mornings, there is a quietness that feels almost sacred. A few moments before the day crowds in where something in you feels genuinely still and clear, more still and clear than you have felt in a long time. Both of these experiences, the sense of something just out of reach and the unexpected stillness, are signs of the same thing. Your inner world is reorganizing. Your sleeping hours are being used for deep processing that your waking hours cannot accommodate. And the strangeness you feel upon waking is simply the sensation of that processing breaking the surface of your conscious awareness. Do not rush through your mornings right now. Give yourself a few moments before the day takes over. Those few moments of gentle, unhurried transition are where some of your most important insights are going to arrive. Thing 2. Your patience with certain things has shortened considerably, and you find yourself feeling a low but persistent frustration with situations that you used to simply absorb without complaint. This second thing is something many Cancers in a period of energetic change experience but rarely talk about, because it feels at odds with the patient, gentle, accommodating nature that is so central to who you are. But here is what is actually happening. The shortening of your patience is not a sign that you have become more irritable or more difficult. It is a sign that you have become more honest. When your energy changes, when the deeper self begins to assert itself, when the soul begins asking for more alignment between your inner truth and your outer life, the things that are most out of alignment begin to create friction. That friction shows up as impatience. It shows up as a low-grade frustration with situations or dynamics that your old self might have simply accepted, because accepting them felt easier than facing them. The new version of you does not have the same appetite for that kind of quiet acceptance. And while this can feel uncomfortable, and while it can sometimes create friction in your relationships and your daily life, it is ultimately a very healthy development. Your impatience right now is your inner compass telling you what needs to change. It is a form of self-knowledge, a form of self-respect, and eventually, if you listen to it carefully rather than trying to suppress it back down, it will lead you toward the adjustments that your life genuinely needs. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Thing 3. You are noticing beauty in places you previously walked past without a second glance. A particular quality of light in the late afternoon, the texture of something ordinary, the sound of silence in a house when everyone else has gone, and these small noticings fill you with something that is very close to wonder. This third thing is one of the most quietly lovely aspects of the energetic change you are moving through. When the inner self is undergoing a genuine shift, the perceptual apparatus, the way you take in the world through your senses, often becomes more sensitive, more attuned, more present. Things that were previously just background begin to step forward. The ordinary becomes a little more vivid. The small things carry a little more weight. For Cancer, whose emotional sensitivity is already extraordinary, this heightening of sensory and emotional perception can feel almost overwhelming at first. You might find yourself moved by things that seem too small to justify the feeling. A particular song, an old photograph, the smell of something that reminds you of a time long past. These things might land in you with a depth and resonance that surprises even you. This is not fragility. This is richness. This is your whole system becoming more alive, more present, more engaged with the actual texture of your life. The wonder you are beginning to feel at small things is one of the clearest signs that something inside you is waking up, that a part of you that was dimmed or closed down or just very tired is beginning to open again. Let that opening happen. Let yourself be moved. Let yourself be caught off guard by beauty. These moments are not distractions from the work of your growth, they are the work of your growth. They are proof that you are becoming more fully present in your own life. Thing 4. Something that used to make you feel guilty no longer does. And in the space where that guilt used to live, there is a new and unfamiliar quiet that is taking some getting used to. The fourth thing is the slow lifting of unearned guilt. Cancer carries guilt with enormous ease and often with very little justification. The guilt of not doing enough. The guilt of wanting things for yourself. The guilt of disappointing others, of saying no, of taking up space, of having needs. This guilt has, in many ways, been a kind of organizing principle in your life, shaping what you agreed to, what you refused, how you spent your time, how you spoke about yourself. But something is changing. In certain specific areas, not all at once, not across the board, but in particular places, the guilt is beginning to release. And the strange thing about it is that the absence of guilt does not immediately feel like freedom. First, it just feels like quiet. A suspicious, almost uncomfortable quiet where the familiar weight used to be. You might even find yourself manufacturing reasons to feel guilty again, because the guilt was so familiar that its absence feels somehow wrong. But it is not wrong. It is right. It is right in a way that your whole nervous system is slowly, carefully beginning to learn. The guilt that is lifting was never truly yours to carry, and its absence is making room for something much more nourishing. A relationship with yourself built on genuine kindness, rather than on perpetual self-punishment. Thing 5. Your body is speaking to you more loudly than usual, sending signals you may have been ignoring. Tiredness at odd hours, tension in unexpected places, a physical restlessness that comes and goes without obvious cause. The fifth thing is physical, and it is important. The energetic change you are moving through is not only a mental or emotional event. It is a full body experience. Your physical self is part of this transition too, and right now it is communicating with you in the clearest language it knows: sensation. The tiredness you feel at unexpected moments is your body processing the energetic demands of deep internal change. It is doing real work even when that work is invisible. The tension you carry in your shoulders, your chest, your jaw, that tension is the stored residue of emotions that have not yet found their way fully to the surface. The restlessness that moves through you at odd hours is the energy of growth. Alive, searching for its proper direction, not yet knowing exactly where it wants to land. Listen to your body, not by obsessing over every sensation, but by giving your physical self the basic respect it is asking for right now. Adequate rest, gentle movement, nourishing food, time outdoors, time in quiet. These are not indulgences. These are the support systems that will allow the larger transformation to move through you without breaking you down. Your body is not failing you. It is doing the most difficult kind of work. Honor that. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting. It's about moving. Thing 6. The stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you are capable of are beginning to sound different. Quieter in some ways, more honest in others, as though the voice that narrates your inner life has been recalibrated. The sixth thing is about your self-narrative. Every person carries an inner story about who they are. A collection of beliefs, assumptions, and memories that together create a portrait of the self. For Cancer, This inner story is particularly vivid and emotionally rich. You are a profoundly self-aware sign, and the story you carry about yourself shapes everything about how you move through the world. But sometimes that story becomes outdated. Sometimes it is still telling the tale of who you were during a particularly difficult chapter, rather than who you have become since then. Sometimes it is still carrying the voices of others, people from your past who defined you in ways that never truly fit. And right now, something is changing in that story. The narrative is shifting. Old chapters that you have been revisiting obsessively are beginning to feel finished, truly finished, not just intellectually concluded but emotionally complete. And new lines are beginning to be written, lines that describe a version of you that is more capable, more worthy, more interesting, and more genuinely yourself than the version you have been narrating for a very long time. Pay attention to how you speak about yourself, to others and to yourself in the privacy of your own mind. The changes in that language are some of the most reliable indicators of how deeply the energetic shift is taking hold. Thing 7. Certain dreams or desires that you had quietly given up on have begun to stir again. Not loudly or dramatically, but with a persistence that tells you they were never actually gone, only waiting. The 7th thing is the return of dormant desire. For many Cancers, there is a list of things that were deeply wanted at one point in life and then carefully, sadly set aside. Set aside because the timing seemed wrong, because others discouraged them, because life got complicated, because it began to feel more realistic to want less. But desire, real desire, the kind that comes from your deepest nature and connects to who you truly are, does not actually disappear. It goes quiet. It waits. It conserves itself, like an ember that keeps its heat long after the obvious flame has gone. And now, something about the energy of this particular season is fanning that ember. You may notice it as a thought that surfaces unexpectedly and refuses to leave. A fantasy that you keep returning to despite yourself. A longing that you try to dismiss with practical reasoning but that shows up again, patient and persistent, every time the noise of daily life goes quiet. Do not dismiss it. Do not add it to the list of things that are not meant for you. Instead, get curious about it. What is it pointing at? What does it represent? What part of your truest self is trying to speak through it? Because the desire that is returning right now is not nostalgia. It is direction. It is your deepest self reminding you of what it actually wants, and quietly insisting that it is not too late. Thing 8. You are finding it easier to be alone with yourself. Not in a lonely way, but in a genuinely comfortable, even enjoyable way. And this greater ease with your own company is one of the clearest signals of a deepening relationship with yourself. The 8th thing is solitude becoming sanctuary rather than discomfort. For Cancer, being alone has not always been easy. Your natural orientation is toward connection, toward the warmth of other people, toward the sense of being held within a loving and familiar relational world. When you have been alone in the past, genuinely physically alone, there has often been an undertone of unease, a reaching toward others, a checking of communication to see if anyone is there. But something is shifting in your relationship to solitude. You are beginning to discover that the quiet company of your own inner life is not empty or frightening. It is actually rich, actually interesting, actually, in certain moments, genuinely pleasurable. The solitude you are beginning to enjoy is not withdrawal. It is acquaintance. You are getting to know yourself in a new way. Not through the reflection of others' eyes, but directly, through the simple practice of being present with your own thoughts, feelings, and experience without immediately translating them for someone else's consumption. This developing comfort with yourself is one of the most important things that can happen to a Cancer in a period of genuine growth. Because everything you want, every loving relationship, every meaningful achievement, every day that feels truly yours, begins with knowing yourself this clearly and caring for yourself this honestly. Thing 9. You are starting to feel a new kind of curiosity about the future. Not an anxious curiosity, not the worried scanning of what could go wrong, but a genuine, almost playful interest in what might be possible that you have never tried before. The 9th thing is the awakening of forward-facing curiosity. For much of Cancer's inner life, the orientation is toward the past, toward memory, toward what was, toward the emotional archive of everything that has come before. This is not a flaw. It is part of the depth that makes Cancer so extraordinary. But it can sometimes mean that the future, the open, unwritten, genuinely possible future, gets less of your attention and imagination than it deserves. What you are beginning to experience now is a shift in that orientation. The future is starting to feel less like a space of anxiety and more like a space of genuine possibility. You are beginning to ask what if in a lighter way, not as a worry but as an exploration. What if I tried something new? What if things unfolded in a way I have not yet considered? What if the next chapter is genuinely different from everything that came before? This shift in your relationship to the future is subtle, but it is profound. It is the beginning of hope, not the desperate, white-knuckled hope that tries to force things into being, but the relaxed, open, genuinely curious hope that allows things to arrive. Cultivate this feeling. Let it grow, because it will lead you exactly where you need to go. Thing 10. The opinions of people who once held enormous power over your emotional state have quietly lost some of that power, and you are finding that your own sense of yourself is becoming a more reliable compass than anything anyone else says about you. The 10th thing is the loosening of others' influence over your self-perception. For Cancer, approval matters. It has always mattered. Not in a shallow or vain way, but in a very deep, very real way, because you are wired for connection. And for you, connection has long been intertwined with feeling valued and seen by the people who matter to you. This means that when someone whose opinion you respect says something critical, it tends to land very hard. And when that approval is withheld, when someone is cold or dismissive or simply unresponsive, it can shake your sense of self in ways that feel disproportionate but are, for you, very genuine. But right now, something is changing in how much external opinion can move you. Opinions that would once have sent you into a spiral of self-doubt are still registering, still noticed, but they are not knocking you over the way they used to. Your own internal sense of who you are, and what you know to be true about yourself, is becoming sturdier, more reliable, more present. This is an enormous development. It means that the foundation of your self-worth is shifting from something that depends on others to something that comes from within. And a self-worth rooted within rather than borrowed from outside is the most durable kind there is. Thing 11. There is a quiet joy beginning to surface, unexpected, gentle, sometimes appearing for no obvious reason, and it is unlike any happiness you have known before, because it does not depend on anything going right. It is simply there. This is the 11th thing, and it may be the most significant one of all, because this quiet joy, this warmth that arises without specific cause, this contentment that visits you in ordinary moments, this gentle sense of being, simply being without needing anything to be different, is the very first unmistakable sign that the deepest level of your energetic change is beginning to complete itself. For Cancer, joy has historically been conditional. It has arrived when relationships are good, when family is safe, when the home is peaceful, when the people you love are well. That is not a small joy. That is a profound and real joy. But it is a joy that depends entirely on external circumstances, which means it is always vulnerable to those circumstances changing. What is beginning now is something different. A joy that is not waiting for conditions to be met. A warmth that arises from somewhere inside you that no external event can fully touch. This is not contentment born of giving up. This is not numbness. It is the deep, clean, durable pleasure of beginning to live more fully from your own center. It is the emotional signature of a person who is, slowly and genuinely, coming home to themselves. You have two options after this video: close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are. The change is real, Cancer. Every one of these 11 things is a signal from your own deepest nature, telling you the same thing in 11 different ways: you are becoming. Do not fight it. Do not rush it. Just let it happen.